Would you like to see more races contested at a distance shorter than a mile, longer than a mile, or do you feel the mile is a perfect distance for harness racing, and why?
The mile is a good distance, but it's whatever the fans want and the bettors. This business all relies on fans and bettors. We're a very small part of this. Horsemen, we have to be there to give them the product, but we have to find out what they want.
Yeah, I'd like to see them different distances like they do the thoroughbreds. I think it adds a different perspective to the sport. I enjoy watching thoroughbred racing for that very reason, is that it's run at different distances. It's a little tougher challenge for handicapping, and I think it would work well in standardbreds.
I don't mind. I think they could go either way as long as the public, whatever they'll bet on, if they like it more, I think it comes down to that. If we're going to get a better handle, then you got to do what you got to do, and we'll get our horse ready for them, you know.
I wouldn't say mile is perfect. I kind of liked some of the short races they had up at Georgian there a few times. But even the mile and a half, you know, I don't know what the bettors are thinking about that, but it might be a little bit more, they could get into the handicapping more on the longer distances.
I like the mile just because everybody goes a mile, so it's easier to compare, I guess. But I also like distance racing better. I'm not a big fan of the sprinting. I don't think it's enough time for some horses. But if we were going to go for different distances, I like longer races.
I like the mile, but I think maybe one day a week, each track should maybe have like what they do at Grand River and Georgian, the extreme days, and just have a couple races at different distances, and let the fans have some fun.
I really enjoyed the night that they have at Georgian Downs. It's pretty remarkable. They go an eighth of a mile, half mile, and it's very interesting. I'd like to see that, once a year, not every night.
Well, a mile has just been our standard for so long that is the distance. But if anything, I would like to see them go farther, a longer distance. It would test the stamina of the horse and the training of the horse, and I would just like to see that because it changes a lot of strategies for a race that's going more than a mile, and you have to put a lot more thinking into going the extra distance.
I think we're getting to the point where we have to look at more distance races. There's just so much speed in our game today that it seems like the 1, 2, 3. The horses that get away 1, 2, 3 are the winners or thereabouts. So you just don't see a lot of off the pace anymore, and I think maybe distance races would improve our game and our betting.
I think maybe with trotters, like in foreign countries where the distance is longer with a bigger field is good, but really here I think we've experimented with it enough in Canada, whereas the mile really seems to suit. Other than trotters, I think the mile is a distance.
I feel the mile is the perfect distance, but I like the extreme day at Georgian, mix it up a little bit, but overall I would say mile is the perfect distance. Back home in Sweden we race mostly over a mile and a quarter, which the races fall asleep for a while, so I prefer the mile.
Being from Sweden, I think I would like to see distance races, longer than a mile for sure. I think it'd be more of a competitive race.
Well, I do like the mile, but also I think we could shuffle it up a little bit, but just a little change. And I would probably go for a little bit more distance than we have now. But I think they're all trained and they're bred to go that mile. I don't think they're bred to go a whole long distance, but a mile and an eighth or something like that, or I think the odd time would shuffle things around.
Personally, I like to see it stay at a mile. Most of the colts are trained to go a mile, not different distances, and might be different for like your cheaper claimers or something like that, but as for the most part, I'd like to see it stay 1 mile.
Well, with the speed nowadays they go, I think perhaps a mile is enough for a horse. Keeps less stress to them and less injuries.
Personally, myself, I think a mile is the perfect distance for them. That way, like anything over a mile, you're overextending them a little bit. I think a mile is plenty.
I think the mile is perfect for them. but I'd like to see them do a mile and a half. Some of them can do that, but I like the mile just because it's a good enough distance for them, and they get a good workout for it.
I would say the mile is probably perfect, just because everybody's used to training a mile, and if anything, a mile and a half would be nice, but I mean, trainers would have to train a horses a little bit different.
I think the mile is the perfect distance myself. Like, some horses are maybe better to longer distance or shorter distance, but I think a mile's pretty fair to all of them, and depending on the size of the track, like the bigger the track, like, you know, you always get exciting finishes at a mile, I think. Mile and 16th I've heard of, but I like the mile.
I like the distance at a mile because I think it gives every horse a chance, but varying the distance for certain horses could help them improve their performance. I'd love to see Woodbine try going a little bit farther distance. You might see a little bit more action, and it might cause the drivers to change their tactics a little bit and maybe drive a little more aggressive or a little more conservative. I think, you know, here and there, you know, it might not be a bad idea to try it. Like at the Meadowlands are trying, it seems like, you know, the races are very exciting there either way, but, you know, it seems like the drivers make different decisions and the outcomes can change.
I like the mile. I love the mile. I like just the competition. It wouldn't matter. I mean, it'd be fun to do it at any distance, but I like the mile myself.
I think the mile's perfect. They've done the shorter distance, they've done the longer distance, and, you know, to me, I just like the mile. I think it's just the best way to go.
I feel it is. Here in the Maritimes at the Charlottetown track, we've went with shorter ones and we went with longer ones, but I think everybody's comfortable with the mile.
I think you can change the lengths of the races and change stuff around, and I've never saw where there was a big difference in the parimutuel handle, whether it was a mile and a half or a mile or a quarter, or, you know, whatever. If you could come up with something that would improve the handle, then I'd be all for it. But as of right now, I think our mile is as good as anything.